Hey, listeners, welcome back to another episode of Two Dads in Tech. Today, we have a very special guest with us. His name is Sam Parr. You might know him as the host of My First Millionaire or the host of MoneyWise, the founder of Hampton. You might even know him from his hustle days, where he built one of the most successful newsletters in the world that was then acquired by HubSpot. We know him as Sam, father and husband. We're really excited to jump into his life and hear a bit about him today. Sam, thanks so much for joining us on the episode today.
It's called My First Million. Drop the
What did I say?
My First Millionaire.
My First Million. I don't know why I said that. Okay, cool. It's My First Million. Listeners, don't ever let me make a mistake like that again. What an embarrassing way to start off. Sam, thank you for joining what is the worst intro I've ever done on a podcast. We appreciate having you here.
My podcast is a stupid name, so it's easy for you to make that mistake.
Actually, My First Million is a great name. I was going to compliment you on that today.
I heard you talk about it, that you hated the name, like you wish that you named it something else.
No, the name doesn't exactly indicate what it is. And also, like when I'm getting a haircut and someone's like, "Oh, you podcast? What do you do?" I was like, "Well, it's called My First Million." But it's not even really about money all the time. Like sometimes we just like talk about anything we want, but it just sounds when you're a listener, the name is funny, but when you're not a listener, it sounds like I'm like a get rich quick person.
Yeah. They're like, how many millions does this guy have? His first one, let's hear about it.
Yeah. So, but MFM is what people call it, really.
It's true. And you did some IRL stuff with it as well. Did you decide to stop doing that, where you would rent out like theaters, and you had, I think, in Vancouver at one point?
Just like, sometimes, like, for example, we sold out like a 2,000 person theater in Vancouver. We did one in Austin. And it would be fun. It would feel good for the ego, and it's like exciting. Like we could sell out like a 5,000 person theater and do like a 10 city tour. But Sean and I each have young kids, and we just don't want to leave.
Yeah, we get that. I was going to ask, actually, because of you founding Hampton, which I heard a bit about in Austin and have since, started to tack on to some of your posts and different podcasts about Hampton. Your skating hobby, which is crazy. You're doing like kick flips and grinding in your backyard on like cobblestone, which I know from my former days is a great way to get injured. So be careful on the cobblestone. But how do you manage staying present at home as a dad, as a husband, while it seems like you're doing a bit of everything?
I always have to remind people this. I'm not doing nearly as much as it appears. I think that I'm prolific at sharing, but I might share everything I'm doing. So but basically I work out in the morning, starting at 7 or 7:30. I'm at the office by 9 or 10, and I leave to go home at 5. And I'm with my kid until she's in bed at 8 o'clock roughly. And then maybe I'll do more work. But Monday to Friday, I call it a school night. It's like pretty low key. I'm not actually doing nearly as much as people think. People think I'm always doing stuff. I'm not.
Sam, I've got a question about that, because that's very similar to my life right now, where I've got 2 kids. So I've got a son, he's going to be 3 in July, and then I have a 3-month-old. And I'm building a startup, and my mornings might start a little earlier than yours, but all that to say is I typically clock out at 5 p.m. and I go spend time with my kids. I cook dinner, I will lay them down to bed. I read them a story. Do you think, we talked to Tyler Dank about this last week, do you think that life is sustainable to grow a high growth startup? Or do you think you have to sacrifice some time with kids, et cetera, to be able to be successful at a high growth company?
I think it depends what industry you're in, what type of business model you have, what type of staff you have. I think that if you raise venture capital and you want to double, or triple for a while, I think that you probably have to grind and make sacrifices. I think that I'm in a very fortunate situation where I'm financially free. I don't need any more money. And because of that, I own my company outright, and I expect it to grow quickly and be the best company in the world. But I'm okay growing slower in order to make my life wonderful. I do think that after 40 hours a week, sometimes my brain, I'm like, I can't make decisions anymore. But then occasionally there's times where I have to sprint and work 80 hours a week, or occasionally I have to travel, although I limit travel. But I do think that having children makes you work harder because you want to prove something to them, or you if you don't have a lot of money, you're like, I have to earn for them. But at the same time, I think that when I was single or childless, I could dedicate more time to my startup. And that is probably one of the reasons why it was successful in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. And that's actually, Daniel asked me this maybe 3 or 4 podcast episodes ago, is how do you have a work-life balance while having a family? And I told him, to be honest, I sacrifice revenue to spend time with my family. I'd say that I probably would have 4 times the revenue I have today if I was like, you know what, I'm going to go grind 24/7. I'll worry about the family when the business is successful.
I think there's a world where you could put work and family as the priority, and then friends and health goes to the side, which frankly I think is fine for a short amount of time, for 3 to 4 years or something like that, in order to, like, I think that making your startup successful and getting wealthy is like an unlock, right? Like, it's like, if I just nail that, everything else is easy. And so I think that sacrificing some of those things for the short term is worth it.
Yeah. And I actually saw a quote earlier today, and it said, it was like a millennial quote. It said, millennials spend their 20s climbing the ladder and trying to get as high as possible, and then they spend their 30s trying to get back down. And I thought that was illuminating because I'm 31. I'll be 32 in a couple months. I have 2 kids, 3-year-old and 1-year-old, and I feel that. I'm like, yeah, I grinded like a madman. I'm honestly still grinding, but like I finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm like, ideally I won't be 40 still trying to climb back down the ladder. Like, I think my 30s are going to be like peak, and then try to figure out how to sustain a life where I'm like, okay, I made it. I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's interesting. It's an interesting dichotomy in life.
Yeah. And I was running demo on the side of being a full-time sales rep, and it ended up getting this viral sort of motion on LinkedIn where a lot of people were shouting out demo, to the point where my boss was like, hey, you're either going to have to stop with demo or we're going to have to let you go. And ultimately now I'm running demo full time. So I think we can probably paint the picture of what happened there. But people ask me, how did I manage it on the side for about 6, 7 months before going full time? And just like what you said, I was like, I used to work out 6 days a week. I now work out 3 days a week. Like, there's a lot of time and things that I did with my health that I was like, you know what? I'll focus on that later. And now we're here and I'm back to working out more. But you're right. It's like you have to sacrifice somewhere, whether it's family, business, health, whatever it is, friends, to be, in my opinion, to be able to, like, I wouldn't say be successful because that's subjective, but be successful at a high growth startup and running one.
I think that, like, whenever I start a project or a company, I just try to be very clear where it's like, this year, what is the price I'm willing to pay and what is the price I'm not willing to pay? And my partner and I, we have that conversation all the time, which is like, what would you like the rules to be? And what are we willing to do? And more importantly, what are we unwilling to do? I think you just have to be very explicit about laying that out and making sure that all your employees know what the rules are.
How big is Hampton? I actually looked at it and I was like, oh, I'm not doing 3 million in ARR, but when I am, I'll hit Sam up. But yeah, how big are y'all as far as employee size?
We're, north of 8 figures in revenue. I think we have maybe 16 full-time people. And then we have 50 people who are, they're called executive facilitators. So they lead all the core groups that are happening every single month.
Got it. Got it.
But we have about 14 or 16 HQ people.
Cool. Awesome. I'm going to do a real quick pivot, completely unrelated to what we were just talking about. I'm going to say a phrase and I want to know what it means to you. So here's the phrase: wieners as big as a baby's arm.
Hilarious and exciting. That was my hot dog stand slogan for Southern Sam's.
I love it. And I noticed that you had an employee. I guess you'd call him an employee, Rydell.
Rydell's my boy.
Yeah, Rydell. Do we still speak to Rydell?
He passed away. Rydell died about 8 years ago. Rydell spent about 20 years in prison for attempted murder.
Oh my goodness.
Because he got in a fight. And I lived in the projects in Nashville. I lived in the hood where me and Rydell I was the only white guy, and me and Rydell would kick it on my front porch and we became buddies. He had the spare key to my house. He was my boy. He was my best friend. And this was when I was still drinking and partying, and we would just smoke cigs and drink beers on my front porch all day. I was like, Rydell, I'm starting a hot dog stand. Come and work there. And I gave him a percentage of the profit. And whenever we would go out, people thought that he was my bodyguard. They were like, are you a celebrity or something? Why are you? Because he was like a 50-year-old hood black dude with gold teeth, but he was my boy. He was one of my best friends.
Yeah, man. Rest in peace, Rydell. I saw that story on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and I loved it.
That area was crazy, man. I saw 4 drive-bys. It was nutty. I loved my time in Nashville. I lived in this area. We called it the Gooch because it was the hood.
The sweaty part of
it was, dude. It was right in between 2 fancy areas, and we were right in the middle. We called it the Gooch, and it was the hood in Nashville, Tennessee. But it was so fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, well, rest in peace, Rydell. Yeah.
Sorry to hear about your friend, man. Yeah, seriously, rest in peace, Rydell.
Rest in peace, Rydell. Rydell went out good though. He was a good guy.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned just even now in your story, back in your partying days, I stopped drinking alcohol on June 29th, 2024.
Well, nice. Congrats.
And about a month after that, I saw that you were at that point 11 years sober. So that I think means you're close to 12 years.
Like 14.
Okay, 14. Then maybe I did the math wrong.
I think 14. I think, or maybe 13 or 14. I forget. Is when I quit.
Congrats. I mean, I think that's huge. I admire that. I sort of passively preach that lifestyle now that I've been, I guess 9 months or so sober, and it's all just health related for me. Runs in the family, some heart problems, and I've just really been trying to be on a health kick. But I'd love for you to kind of walk me through that decision, because 14 years without alcohol, that's incredible in my opinion. And it's also very hard. I think honestly, if you had started 1 or 2, 3 years ago, the stigma I think has lessened in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it was weird when I started. Yeah.
But 14 years ago, yeah, like that was definitely not like cool or like socially even acceptable 14 years ago. So walk me through that. I mean, tell me about that decision and how it's really changed your life.
And real quickly, I'd like to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Agree. That's agree.com, agree.com. They are by far, without a doubt, the best solution when it comes to documents in the entire market. So over here at Demo, we switched our entire infrastructure to go from DocuSign to agree.com. And the reason for that is simple. 1, the pricing is a little bit more friendly for a company like us. 2, they have payment integrations. And 3, I no longer have to spend time chasing down invoices. It's an incredible tool. It's really easy to use, and they are growing extremely fast. So go ahead and check out agree.com. That's agree.com.
My personality, I'm a very all-in type of guy. When I get into shit, I go all in. And I discovered alcohol when I was like 18, and I loved it. This is the greatest thing ever. And I also had some anxiety issues and stuff, and it like helped self-medicate. And there was a period for like 2 years where I was intoxicated like every hour, and I got arrested a handful of times. I spent some times at county jail, and it was horrible. I even had a job lined up at Airbnb. I was going to be one of their first employees. And I lied because I said I didn't have a criminal record, and they caught me. And they're like, wow, you're a liar. You're liars. And so I hit rock bottom, and I was like, what am I doing? I got to get my act together. But the issue with like most 21, 22, 23-year-olds is I was like, how am I going to meet people? Like, are girls going to like say I'm a weirdo for not drinking? And then I met a friend who was like a ladies' man, and he was like, oh, I don't drink. I'm an alcoholic, so I don't drink. And he would crush it with girls. Like, girls loved him. And I'm like, oh, there's a path. Okay, I can. And then I was
It's
like,
possible.
yeah. So I basically like locked myself in a room and got sober.
Wow.
One time I got hospitalized because I started getting seizures, because that's what happens when you get withdrawals. And then I got a little help doing it. Then I started using it to my advantage. I would meet girls and they'd be like, hey, you want to go out for dinner or whatever? And they'd be like, yeah. They would order a drink, and they're like, what are you going to get? I'm like, I'm just going to get a Diet Coke or something. Like, what, you don't drink? I'm like, yeah, I got issues. And they're like, I can fix you.
I can fix him.
So I was like, I use it to my, when you're struggling, you take any advantage you can get to get better. But, and then I just got really comfortable with it. And then my friend group, who I'm close with, we don't drink at all. Like, drinking is not part of our environment. And so it's been kind of easy.
That's awesome. Like I said, I really look up to you, because when I first decided to stop, I said, I'm going to stop for 90 days. It was a big health kick. I'm like, I need to lose weight. I need to get my life together. My dad had a 3rd heart attack. It like scared the living daylights out of me. I had 2 kids. I was like having a midlife crisis. But after 90 days, I was like, I'm just going to keep going to a year. And so I haven't made it a year yet. But now that I'm, 3 months out from a year, I don't really intend on bringing it back. I've gotten very comfortable just drinking like club sodas and lime and Spindrift, and like there's so many alternatives now.
And I don't advocate that everyone gives it up necessarily, because like I do miss like getting
right
with your homies. Like that's or going out with your wife on a Friday night and getting sloppy. That's exciting. That's fun. So I definitely I wish I could do that, but yeah, I can't.
Do you drink NA beers?
I drink NA. So I wrote an article in 2016 saying I think the NA beer industry is going to blow up. You could find it on my website Trends, or my old website. And because all I would drink is O'Doul's, and it was piss. It was horrible. And then like The Athletic came out and a few other things. I'm like, this is going to be a hit. And we wrote about it and we predicted it. So yeah, I like NA a lot.
That's cool. Yeah, there are a lot. I mean, like I mean, there's so many, even like Heineken Zero.
I love Heineken Zero. I'll drink Heineken Zero at like 10 a.m.
Yeah, nice. I mean, why not?
It's just like seltzer.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, there's this is completely unrelated to alcohol, but there was this LinkedIn post that you made yesterday that I wanted to bring up because I feel like it's talked about a lot, but it's not talked about a lot amongst tech or B2B in general. And so your post, what it essentially said was tariffs. 92% of CEOs in Hampton say that they will be impacted by tariffs. So I guess my question is, you don't see a lot of CEOs talking about this publicly. Obviously, it looks like they're talking about it in this community that you have. And maybe it's because the political issues that stem from possibly addressing it, right? If you say one wrong thing, it could lead to, who knows, X, Y, and Z. How do you think, and this is one of those questions, but how do you think that the tariffs are quietly affecting the startup world right now?
I'm not an expert on it, so I don't even want to like necessarily say, but here where I can show you like, so in Hampton, we talk about everything. The rules of the game is in Hampton, in our communities. Everything's safe as long as you're respectful about it. And a lot of people thought that my post was political. I'm like, dude, it's not fucking political. All we did was I surveyed 26 people and I just said, tell me your story anonymously. It's like, I don't care who you voted for. Sounds good to me, whatever. And then I'm just going to share that data. And the reason we shared it was a lot of people are going through this stuff and we're like, here's what these people think and here's their experience. So you can take it. All I'm doing is just explaining information. And so for the small guys, like, our average member is like a $20 million business. For the small guys like that, yeah, it's like a bloodbath. It's like really bad. It's horrible. For the big guys, like some people on that post were like, well, why don't they just manufacture in America? It's like, dog. If you have like a $6 million a year, like D2C business, your take home earnings is probably like $100,000 a year right now. Like it's shit because of a variety of reasons. You're telling me that now, in many cases, a really hard business model. Now they're going to go and have to figure out how to create a manufacturing thing. And like, maybe they'll figure it out, but it ain't like I just go to the manufacturer store and boop, bop, boop, it's done. Like, so yeah, it's like turmoil.
Yeah. And I didn't see your post as political at all. I think that I'm burnt out from everything becoming political.
These nerds that kept saying it was political, shut up.
I thought it was just really insightful.
Everyone's going to make something political. Yeah. It's like, no matter what. I posted today on LinkedIn about something I replied to Mr. Beast on Twitter. I was like, look, I replied to Mr. Beast and it was like, I'm like a reply guy on X. I always just say stupid stuff and it like gets a lot of attention. But there's a photo of him and his fiance. And I said, hey, Jimmy, does your fiance know that you're Mr. Beast? And it got like thousands of likes. And then Greg, whatever his little number, and he's like, I don't think it's public. He's probably keeping it private from her. And I said, I know, that's why I asked. But then his fiance replied to me and said, what? So I put that on LinkedIn. Of course, the moment I put a screenshot of Mr. Beast on LinkedIn, someone's like, did you know he's creating a Lunchable competitor that's making kids sick? And I'm like, that's totally not what I'm talking about. How did you just politicize this very funny screenshot?
That's a fart joke and just be a fart joke.
I know. Like, let me make fart jokes without it being about who I voted for. Like, just chill out, guys.
Yeah. It is exhausting. My friend would always text me back and forth about politics. And I'm like, dude, at some point, do you just get sick of listening to this and talking about this? Because I'm sick of hearing about it. But yeah, everything has to become political. And so let's transfer away from politics because we don't want to sit there and get stuck on it. I had a question for you. So I know you have a daughter. I believe you just have one kid right now, right?
Yeah, and my wife's pregnant.
Well, congratulations.
Congrats, Sam. That's awesome. Really, really happy for you both.
Let's go. And then how old is your daughter? I think I saw your tweet. It was maybe 2023, November 2023?
About a year and a half.
Awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations. Do we know what it's going to be or anything like that?
Yeah, we're a little girl. So
Let's go.
We're girl and girl.
Dad.
We did
girl
IVF
dad.
And I only have girl embryos. So I'm going to have to go and do my thing in a cup and hopefully get us more boys.
I love it.
Got it.
Hey, girl dads have a special, there's a special, my father-in-law has 3 girls, one of them being my wife, and it's special.
I don't mind I prefer girls. I like girls. I just want a boy when he's like 21 and up.
Yeah. We both have 2 boys.
Ignore him for 21 years and then say, hey, I'm your dad.
Yeah, like my little girl is precious and she's so well behaved. And then I see the boys and I'm like, Oh man, I don't know if I want that right now, but I would like them to just like come out of my wife and disappear for about 18 years and then come back. Keep on.
Dude,
Boys are fun. Girls,
Sam,
I have a niece and a nephew from my brother, and yeah, the niece is actually pretty crazy sometimes. So I love both of my boys, but it's chaos. It's controlled
it,
chaos and sometimes uncontrolled chaos.
yeah, my toddler's absurd. He is wild. And then now I have another boy that's 3 months old. I'm like, holy cow, this is so much easier than this thing over here running, peeing on everything, like thinking that it's funny. I get it. I get it. Which makes me want to ask one thing that was really, really difficult for me, and I didn't think it would be, was becoming a dad. Like just that shift in identity. How was it for you, and how did you handle that transition from not being a dad to becoming a dad?
I've always been super soft. Like if you like the joke at my old company was like, if you want to raise, just ask me because I say yes to everything. I'm a pretty soft guy. And for the longest time, animals was my passion. So we used to rescue animals or foster a lot of dogs and things like that. I loved animals. That's like was my passion for a long time. And I was so ready to have kids. I've always wanted children and I wanted a lot of them. And I've always been good with kids. Like even, it's not like a lot of like 18-year-old boys are not like into it. I've always loved like holding a baby and like making them smile. And so when I got my kid, when she was born, I remember this sounds weird, but I bet this is mostly men listening. They might understand this. I remember when I got married, I remember thinking, we are family now. I will I will kill for you. Like if it comes down to it, I will kill someone to protect you. And then when my daughter was born, I remember I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh, I will die for you. Like if it meant taking my heart out to give to you, there is no question. And I remember thinking to myself, this sounds morbid, but I remember thinking to myself, that feels so great. That is such a wonderful feeling to like be willing to do anything to protect someone. And it made me feel incredibly masculine. And I loved that feeling. I loved it. I loved the feeling of being the man of the house. I love the feeling of calmness should come from dad, or dad will protect us, or um, dad's energy will help set the tone for the family. I loved carrying that burden. It's made me feel awesome and it's given me purpose. I used to think that your job was your purpose, and it ain't. That ain't it.
Mm.
And so I
Yeah.
loved the feeling. So becoming a father, it was awesome. Had no challenges. I felt like I was born to do this.
I love that. I want to double click on something you said. I think a lot of listeners probably can relate. I would die for my children, but I also have thought, he's 3, so he's in preschool right now, like 2 days a week. He's mostly at home with my wife, which is great. But I'm like, man, what am I going to do if he gets bullied one day? And my mind goes to some psychopathic places. Like if my son gets bullied, like I'm gonna I'm gonna ruin some people's lives and like be in prison for the rest of my life. Ideally not. Scratch that from the record, FBI listening to Two Dads in Tech. But I'm like, I will legitimately struggle to control myself if like my son comes home from school one day with a black eye and he's like, hey, so and so punched me. Like, I'm like, okay, who do I kill first? The kid or his parents? And I'm like, that's just I'm a psycho when I think about it. So I'm already preparing myself because I'm like, look, unfortunately, I cannot control whether he gets bullied or if he bullies. Like kids are kids. So ideally he doesn't bully, but man, if he gets bullied, that's going to be hard for me to control myself. So, I'm preparing daily with my wife, who's much softer and more level-headed and reasonable than me to not do that.
That's funny. I think my wife would be that person in the family because I'm much more reasonable and like, hey, it's probably the parenting that's bad over there rather than the kid. But yeah, I'm a little bit more level set.
I'm a sociopath, but I know that about myself.
Hey.
My wife knew she was getting herself into, and she said
Hopefully
yes.
you're on my team.
Sam, I saw that you did, I think, my first million, which is not my first millionaire, Daniel.
My first
I
million.
know
I'll never make that mistake again. As the
we
most
should just call it
embarrassing
my first
mistake.
millionaire for the rest of the podcast.
We should
But
launch a second podcast called My First Millionaire. Just copy everything from MFM.
you reach out to all the guests. But I saw that there was like 746 episodes. I know you do Money Wise as well. So my guess is you've been on over 1,000 podcasts.
Isn't that crazy?
Dude, it's
That's
wild, right?
nuts.
I'm sure you thinking about it is like, holy cow.
Well,
Um,
I didn't want to be a podcaster. Frankly, I still don't want to. Like, I'm going to quit eventually. I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year, but I don't even like it.
Well, when I asked you to guest, you were the first response was something to the effect of like, honestly, I'm really exhausted of guesting on people's podcasts. I think I just wore you down. That's like my specialty is just ask until they say yes.
I frankly don't even like podcasts. Like,
Yeah.
I did not, I don't dream of becoming a great podcaster. That's not at all what I care about. I care about doing a good job at anything I'm doing, but like becoming a podcaster, like, first of all, the majority of my money has not come from podcasting. A lot of my fame or whatever you want to call this has, but this was an accident. I just filled in for someone one day when Sean's guest didn't arrive or something like that. And it just happened. Like I had zero aspiration to do this. And it's just kind of funny how it's happened.
Would you say the same about Sean? Do you think he's like...
No, he loves it. And, if you've noticed his arc, Sean wasn't that good Sean was good, but he's way better because than where he started because he like wanted to acquire that skill. Sean is like the type of guy, like Sean's dream or one of his many dreams I would have to imagine is to write a play or to become a comedian or something. He loves storytelling and he loves like the performance. He loves that stuff. I don't love it as much. I don't love it at all. Yeah.
I hate
so does it kind of annoy you doing these? Like, were you like, damn, I got to get on this podcast?
Well, no, because I met you. I met y'all at the newsletter thing. But if I like know someone and it's like fun, I like have it. It's just a conversation to me. I'm not performing, but I usually say no to everything because people think that I'm a podcaster. I spend my time building companies. My goal is to bootstrap a company to be a multi-billion-dollar company. That's my goal, and I want to do that because it's exciting and I love it. I don't care about podcasting. Podcasting to me is a means to an end. I like creating content, but I prefer the written word.
Yep. I like written word content. Do you think Hampton will be that multi-billion-dollar business or do you think it'll be something else?
It could. Yeah, it could. When I started The Hustle, I started this thing called The Hustle. It was a newsletter. I started it in 2016 and I had the idea for it in 14 or 15. And I was like, I think this could be like $100 million a year revenue company. And people laughed at me. They've laughed at me. And then I started it and I'm like, I still like had doubts in my head. Like I'm like, can this work? Can this work? I think it can. The numbers say it can, but why does no one else agree with it? So it created doubts. And then Austin and Alex from Morning Brew came about and they had the same idea. They're like, I think this makes sense. And then our friend, started this thing, or this guy who I'm friends with now started this thing called Industry Dive, and they grew to 100 million in revenue. I sold my company too early. We sold before I got to 100 million in revenue, but my thesis was right. It could get there. And with this company, it's the same thing where people are going to laugh at me while I'm doing it. They're going to be like, why are you doing this little thing? It's going to this is going to make hundreds of millions a year in profit if I execute well.
Well, I think you look at like the scam, with The Hustle, Morning Brew. I listened to MFM with Alex and Austin, by the way, which was awesome. I don't want to say you were before your time, but like you kind of were. Like you and Morning Brew and
perfectly.
It was just perfect.
It was like me and Morning Brew, The Skim, Industry Dive, and maybe one or two more. And I don't ever want to like overplay our hand here. We're not going to the moon, okay? We're not like doing something crazy. We're doing something relatively small in a niche industry. But we nailed it and we predicted it before everyone else predicted it. And we helped inspire, 10,000 small businesses who are now doing it now. We didn't invent anything. This has existed for years. We just helped popularize it and maybe create some of the frameworks for this little industry. And that makes me incredibly proud. But we predicted it and we were right. I mean, your company, beehiiv, exists because of that thesis that we proved individually. And now you guys are the next class that is going to change it totally up and probably make it much bigger and inspire a lot more people.
Yeah, it's an exciting time at beehiiv. Speaking of beehiiv, obviously Alex and Austin being Morning Brew and Tyler coming from beehiiv, you invested in one of beehiiv's competitors. How does it feel now, I guess several years removed, passing on beehiiv?
So I don't know Tyler well. I like Tyler. Tyler's a great guy. I'll tell you why I didn't invest. So I've known Nathan Barry from ConvertKit since 2012.
Yeah, it's a long time.
He's a very close friend of mine. And so he gets my loyalty over Tyler just because Nathan's like my family friend. He's friends with my wife. So I'm going to go with him no matter what, regardless if the business is winning or losing, but they're doing great. But Tyler came off as very immature. And he also came off as, oh, and I thought the business was going to be tiny. I thought this is stupid. Newsletters, like I had this, me and Austin and Alex, we all had the same idea. Let's just take, because we each individually had built software. And I was like, no one wants this. What? Then but he's grown. Tyler is not, well, he is immature because he's 27 or 28, whatever he is. But he's used that.
He's 31, I think. But yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I'm
I know that's fine.
I'm like remembering him as this younger guy.
Yeah.
But he's used this like energy, and I actually think he's become this wonderful executive. And the energy and everything that he's putting out, I don't agree with how you guys give Kit a hard time for everything, but I understand why you do it. I just hate seeing meanness go back and forth, but I totally get why, and I'm sure it's effective. But he has turned into this amazing executive, and I don't regret investing in him because I have to be loyal to Nathan. But I think Tyler's just fantastic, and I think beehiiv is going to be a huge company. I think I often look at what Tyler does in public, like some of his newsletters, and I think I am learning so much from him. So he's actually a great CEO.
I mean, that's great.
I think I could have invested in that company at a $10 million valuation. Let's say I put $25,000 in. I think that cost me, I think maybe that company could sell for $200 to $500 million. So I think that's going to cost me, I don't know, 400, 500 grand.
Yeah. And I've seen up close and personal Tyler growing. I mean, I've, been a ride or die for about 3 years now. And I mean, he has grown. He's not just the CEO of a tiny little bubble newsletter company now. I think he's leading like founders masterminds and stuff. And, I actually met Nathan from Kit in Austin and had actually really enjoyable conversation with him. And so it doesn't surprise me that you haven't gone back 13 years and being friends with him. Like, that makes sense to me.
Everyone who meets Nathan loves Nathan, and they all say the same.
He's a great guy. I DM'd him on X.
This guy is the most honest truth. Like there is no bullshit to Nathan. You can not like their business strategy, but he's a wonderful guy. And that's why I hate when you guys argue, because I think Tyler's probably a great guy too. And I'm like, but when I was competing against Morning Brew, I wanted to kill them.
No, it's a fun time. I DM'd Nathan on X before the newsletter conference in Austin. I said, hey, let's break the fourth wall. Internet fun is all sort of fake when you kind of get in person and shake hands. And so we chatted for 30 minutes. I was like, hey, did you fly here in your own plane or did you take something else? He's like, no, 7 hours is usually like the cutoff of when I'm going to fly myself. And, totally enjoyable guy. But yeah, the banter on X, I think it's a characteristic for sure.
Sam, like you mentioned, you, Austin, and Alex, I don't know why I was blanking there, kind of figured it out with newsletters early on before now they're hot, right? And I know you've been asked this question before. Everybody asks this questions when they have a really good acquisition. You wake up, you see the wire. How did it make you feel? Or did it make you feel like, what's next? How'd you feel when that wire hit?
Dude, it made me feel amazing. And I still feel amazing from it. Like, I hate when people lie about this. It made me happier. And I'm still happier because of it. It was the greatest thing on earth. It was totally life-changing. And I think more people should do that, or at least try to do that. I think that the way it worked out was we didn't raise much capital. I own the whole thing. The headline that people see for the acquisition price, we sold for more than that.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
It was.
Did you disclose or no?
It was mid tens of millions of dollars. And
I love that.
I had QSBS, so it was taxed at a very good rate. I owned HubSpot stock, which until 2 weeks ago had tripled.
Sure.
It was a great, awesome outcome. And I asked Kip, the guy who led the deal, the CMO of HubSpot, how's it for y'all? He goes, I would do it 10 times out of 10. So they loved it too. It was the perfect deal for everyone. And I'm very happy. Now, looking back, the company could have been 10 times bigger, but my goal early on was to get the exit before I had children.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Good goal.
What was your first big purchase where you're like, yeah, I'm getting this now?
Much. I bought a car for $110,000, which that's a lot of money. But like, if you make $200,000 a year, if you wanted to, $100,000 is what like a really fancy SUV costs. So I bought a car, and then someone in France wanted me to speak at a conference, and they paid for my wife and I to fly first class. But then I paid for my mom and dad to come with me first class. And that was basically it. I didn't buy anything.
That's cool.
Wow.
You
Look
know,
at you.
I stuff doesn't really make me happy. I love buying vintage clothes off eBay. I like that, but like I don't have any watches. I don't have fancy shit. I rent a house right now where it's completely furnished. I love services, so I have a nanny. I haven't done my laundry in like 5 years. So I love
Nice.
services, but like I don't own a lot of things. I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to stuff.
So I have a question then, because I just was listening. I told you before we started recording, I was listening to Jackie's episode on Money Wise, which was fun because, you know, the JPEG is you. And she's like, just kidding. And your JPEG's like floating next to her face. You asked over 100 millionaires if money makes you happy. And you've asked all these episodes in Money Wise, like, hey, what's the number? Is it 7 million, 10 million? You know, you asked, and there's so many different questions. What's your answer? How much money is your threshold for, I don't need any more?
25 times your annual spending.
Ooh, a relative answer. I like that. Okay. That's a good answer.
Why do you land on that?
Because you'll never run out. If you want to spend $1 million a year and you got $25 million in investable assets, that's roughly 3%. So if you spend roughly 3% of your investable assets, 10 out of 10 times based off of the scenarios of since the US economy was formed, if you invest in like a 80-20 bonds and index fund portfolio, 100% of the time, based off of the trailing 200 years of the US stock market and the government of America, you will never run out of money. And in most cases, you will continue to grow your money by a significant amount. And so for me, the thing was, how do I earn enough by selling a company that I put that aside and I know that I am gravy. I never need to earn a cent more ever again. And then anything that I do now, which I'm always going to be doing shit. I will never stop starting companies. That's just cream cheese. That's just a little extra. And so because of that, I'm able to approach it in a different mindset. But my opinion is that 3% of your liquid net worth, if the trailing 200 years repeats itself, which I bet that it is, you will never run out.
I was just doing math while you were talking to see what that number is for me, but that's nice. I actually like that as kind of a lever, you know, because depending on who answers, it's like, oh, I think it's 25 to 40 million. I think is one of the people that said that. I was like, that's a lot of money. Like most people are never going to get there.
It all depends on how much you want to spend.
Yeah, exactly.
It all depends on how much you want to spend. I like spending money. So I said I don't own stuff, but like I like flying first class. I like flying. I like having a full-time nanny and I like paying her a fuckload of money. I want to pay her above rate.
It's awesome.
When I go out to eat, I love tipping a shit ton.
Yep.
I like going to dinner and paying for everyone. I like telling my family, come to vacation with us. I rented this sick Airbnb. Everyone's welcome. I like doing that stuff.
It's quality of life over just, you know, material assets. I think that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah. You've built up this reputation that's like, Tyler's the same way actually in this newsletter. Like it's this transparent, very blunt reputation on social media where you're always just like telling the truth. Like you're telling your opinion and that's your opinion.
It's called being autistic, which my therapist last week has made it clear that she thinks that I am.
Is that really?
But yeah, like what's the consensus? How did that come about?
We were sitting down and I was like, look, lady, you've been asking me all these questions. Can you just tell me what to do to become a better person? And I will just do exactly what you say. And she was like, well, if you want to know the truth, I think you're a little autistic. And that was a very autistic thing to say. And I was like, sick. Okay, great. Give me the answer.
Hey, now that you're diagnosed, you can figure out how to deal with that. I love that. That's funny. A therapist would say that.
And you like, you call your wife, you're like, hey, so I got some news for you.
I'm like, I married a woman who's Black and Jewish, and now I'm autistic. I can say anything I want.
You have every minority possible.
That's funny. Well, I was gonna ask you, like, I've seen you call out like shady things that VCs have done. I've also seen you shout out your mother-in-law's pillow business. Like you're always just kind of keeping it real because it's like whatever you believe in, you believe in. Yeah. What is one really hot take belief that you think will tank startups going forward? Like, I feel like a lot of AI companies are going to die, but like, what's some hot take, whether it's the founder, maybe the go-to-market motion that you think will tank companies if they don't fix XYZ?
So, do you guys live in New York?
No,
Charleston,
Wisconsin.
You ever hang out in New York?
I'll be in New York next week and 2 weeks later.
You ever been to a bodega?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Usually it's like a Korean family or some like Egyptian family. And when I go to these places, I love them. I love bodegas. I love how there's a family run business. I went to this bodega the other day and I took a photo of it because it was beautiful. They just had boxes of cereal and then they had like little cups full of cereal with a lid on and you could buy them. And they weren't hiding that it was just Costco cereal repackaged, but they just did it because the customer wants it. And then when the lady was counting change, she looked me right in the eye and she started flirting and riffing with me, like just shoot the shit, whatever. When I walked in, the man behind the counter, he had never seen me before, but he goes, "Chief, what's going on, man? Nice to see you again. What do you want?" And they were anyway. And I asked for something off the menu, and then really quick he goes, "That's going to be $12.50." I go, "Sounds fair, sounds good, whatever." My opinion is that I have invested in so many startups, and they come to me with this bullshit of, "We can't get sales. We're doing this. We're doing that." I go, "Brother, you need to act like you're a Korean family that owns a bodega, and you got to get on the damn phones and start cold calling and selling people whatever you can sell them. You are not this like startup where you delegate things. You shouldn't be going on like company building bonding trips. You shouldn't until you get to, let's say, 5 million in revenue or something like that, maybe 1 million in revenue. I'm not sure exactly, but in the ballpark, you should act like you are an immigrant owner of a bodega. And if you don't hit this sale, your family is broke and maybe getting deported. That's how you should act. And it pisses me off that these startup founders will get really soft and they act like they have to come up with a scalable solution, that they're cold emailing. It's like, dude, go hand out flyers. Just do something. Act like you are this immigrant here and you have to pay your kids' tuition and you have to pay rent. Otherwise, you have literally no safety net. Because if you tell me I'm shutting down this company, but I learned a lot. I don't care what you learned. All I care about is getting a return on my money. So did you make me more money or not? In reality, I do care about them, but I like to get really harsh with them. And I'm like, dude, I invested in you to make me more money. That is it. Are you doing that for me or not? If not, then you're a failure and I don't care what you learned. So I think that a lot of people, when they're just getting going, they get really fancy and all this shit. And I just say, act like you're a Korean immigrant who runs a bodega.
I've worked in startups most of my career. And what's interesting is there's a difference between someone who knows how to systematize and build the architecture and scale and someone who's just like 0 to 1 absolute grit. And
there's a time and place for all of it.
There is. There's a time and
But
place
if
for
you're
0 to
running out of
1.
money, you better be on that street handing out flyers.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because eventually in those cases, everyone becomes a salesperson. You can't get away from it. It's like, no matter what your skill set is, why you were hired, what you're being tasked to build, if everyone loses the money, you better start selling something, because that's what actually pays the bills. So yeah, it's a very interesting take.
I gave this speech to this company that was we invested in that wasn't doing so hot. Now they're killing it. It's called Consensus. And
demo platform. Yeah.
I was like, show me your calendar right now. I go, there should be no white space. That should be sales calls on all of those fucking things. Don't tell me you talked to 2 customers this week. It's got to be 15 a day. Okay. Like, now once you get some traction, then you could hire and do this. But like, we got to make this shit work. Otherwise, like, you're a failure. And do you want to be a fucking winner or do you want to be a winner?
Yeah. I remember year 1 at beehiiv. I was lone seller for about a year at beehiiv before I started hiring a team. And most Fridays I would do a forecast report there was like 10, 15 of us at the time. And my voice would be gone because I was on so many calls that week, 40, 60 calls, just back to back. And so I would be talking like this because I just couldn't give the report. And so now we've grown since then. We have a great team. They're all awesome. But I'm like, there's something about the blood and sweat and tears of building from literal scratch that, man, it's fun, but it takes a certain type of person. That's for sure.
I was texting Daniel last night actually because that resonates a ton. I was like, dude, I got to figure something out because we're a traffic-based site. We're a marketplace to evaluate software. So we're like G2, but different. We're a little bit deeper than that. And so it's like, dude, traffic is becoming an issue. Like traffic from our viral moment, we were damn good for 4, 5, 6 months. And now it's like, okay, slowly dying. And we hadn't built out anything to build up traffic. And I was telling him last night, I was like, dude, I got to figure something out because I'm not getting traffic and I can't sell without traffic. But I think to your point, Sam, I need to act like a Korean bodega owner. Like just go out there and do some guerrilla marketing and get some traffic.
You just figure it out. You go to those stores and like, they're not, and like, you could say like, this is unethical, but whatever. You could say like, do they have this like committee to decide if they should sell nicotine or not? Or did a customer say, get nicotine, I want to give you money for it? You know what I mean? Like there is no committee. There's no like, oh, that's how we make money now. Okay, done. We're into it. Like, and there needs to be phases of that.
Oh yeah, we did that. We did that early days. Yeah, I won't even get into all the details, but I'm like, yo, if someone's going to pay me to do something, I would sell to them. The money would be in Stripe. And then I would tell beehiiv, I said, hey, they already paid. So now we have to figure out how to actually deliver on this. And, early days in startup, you got to do that. It's like, don't build and then get the money and then figure out how to, give us a solvable product.
And don't even call it a startup. Say we're a small business.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I worked in a small medical device manufacturer for about 4.5 years that just sold. I actually replied to one of your tweets recently about manufacturing. I can't remember exactly what it was, but my father-in-law sold his company successfully on March 31st, finally closed. But earlier with your, the tariff response and some of the like outsourcing, offshore stuff, like that was my world. I built startups in the umbrella of this medical manufacturing, and you just have to literally have to just do what makes you money. I mean, their profit was like 3 to 6%. They were in the black, but barely, and they did a profit share. And, there's 30 employees and everyone was very happy. Work-life balance was great, but like the margins on this stuff is totally different. And so you got to learn how to just make money. There's a definite skill set that comes with that.
Yeah, that's literally what I'm doing today. I'm trying to get 20 early access people for a new feature. They better pay me and then I'll build it. That's kind of how we work over here at Demo. But I know we're coming up on time here. I wanted to ask you one last question before we round this out to a close. And that's just simply, what's one thing that you personally think that you need to work on in life that you're struggling at?
I'm an incredibly emotional person. And I think being emotional is good. I think people like me because I don't hide my emotions. I explain what they are. But every once in a while, like I'll lash out at my family or my wife. I'll be pissed off because maybe she made a mistake. And instead of just like breathing for like 5 seconds and making a decision, I just like make it based purely off emotion. I do that at my company where someone's pissing me off. And in my head, I'll be like, you know what? Fuck them. You're the wrong person. Get out of here. You know what I mean? Like I'm a very emotional human being. And so I need to get better at not reacting, or at least like breathing for like a minute and then reacting. But I'm very emotional, and I've gotten incredibly better at it.
Okay. It's funny. I always tell my wife I'm not very emotional, but I have some times where I act the same way. Last night, the newborn woke up for the first time in 2 weeks through the night. Pissed me off. I was like, what like, go to sleep, dude. Like you've been sleeping for 2 weeks. What are you doing? I got to wake up early. But yeah, that's, maybe it's the opposite. But awesome. Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you? And then if anybody here is in the ICP of Hampton, give us a little bit more information. Who knows if they will be.
Hampton's going to take over the world. So you can check it out. It's joinhampton.com.
If I can join, that would be nice, but I have no net worth. Do you accept $0 in net worth?
Not net worth. It's on.
All right. It's value of company. Right.
Company revenue. And so you could be broke. A lot of people, like before I sold my company, I was not like money wealthy at all or cash wealthy. We've pivoted the company big time. We have in real life core groups. So that's an 8-person group of similar people who have similar styles and types of businesses as you, meeting in real life. And we're slowly launching like New York. We have live, we have Austin, then we're going to SF, and then LA, Chicago. And so if you're a founder, and even if you're in like a Boise or whatever, or a smaller place and you want like a virtual core group, check it out, joinhampton.com. And then I'm on Twitter, the Sam Parr. I'm on Instagram, the Sam Parr. I post lots of skateboard videos. I post lots of baby videos. Very seldomly is it business though.
How many times do you think it would take you right now to land a tray flip?
On smooth ground, 5 times.
Smooth ground. Hell yeah.
My man, you still got it. You just didn't drop it. I was a skateboarder for about 7 or 8 years. I mean, skate park every Saturday after school, skating with my friends, ramp in my front in the driveway. But then I just stopped, and I sort of wish I didn't. Every time I see you just like do a sick trick over a box and stuff, I'm like, yo, this guy just didn't stop. Like, what was my problem? Why'd I stop?
I stopped for a minute, and then about 3 or 4 years ago, I got back into it, and now I skate a lot. It's so fun.
It is so fun.
My goal is to do it this year. I'll do an 8-stair handrail. My goal is the way that I live life is basically like my 12 or 14-year-old self. Just how do I make them like be pumped.
Yeah.
I think
That's
your
sick.
12 to 14-year-old
That's
self would be super stoked about where you landed in life.
Dude,
You're
I just think
dad to one, almost 2. You got
as you get
money. It's great.
older, you just get lamer, and I'm just trying to get dope.
Yeah.
What a quote. Sam, thank you so much. And for everybody listening, you can go to twodadsinTech.com to listen, or look up Two Dads in Tech on all streaming platforms. Subscribe on YouTube as well. It helps a lot. Sam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
Have
you,
an amazing
Sam.
day.
This
all
was
right?
great. Take care, man. See you soon. Bye-bye.
God bless
See ya.
America.